you to share your fondest memory of your time in the U.S. Navy. What was the best time of your career?
I guess when I was finally able to do that rough draft of the ship. Remember, I don't have an engineering degree, but I had listened and learned, and I read and I studied. And I went to work at the Naval Ship Engineering Center, and the new boss there was racist. And I never used a title, Miss or Mrs., because with the name Raye Montague, everybody thought I was a man. And that opened doors for me, too, later on. And 3 days after I went to work, Naval Ship Engineering Center, my new boss came in and he said, "Hi, I've come to meet the new guy." And with that, I said, "Hi, I'm Raye Montague." And extend the hand and look them dead in the eye and keep that hand extended. You force people to shake hands with you. Otherwise, they'll be embarrassed if other people are around.
It's a very firm handshake, by
A
the way.
very firm handshake.
Very firm.
Okay?
Still today.
You don't give that limp. It's, you know. And he said, "Oh," in his mind, "how am I going to get rid of her?" So we shook hands. And he assigned me a project that the Navy had been working on for 6 years. And at that time, it spent over $600,000 on. He gave me a 6-month deadline to make it work. And I found that the contractors working on this program was Rosenblatt and Sons, naval architecture firm in New York City. So what did I do? I checked into a hotel in New York, went to work on Wall Street every day. And I figured out that Rosenblatt and Son had done a much better job than anybody that they were sending up to observe realized. But you had to tear a computer apart and reassemble it in order to get things done, because what the Navy wanted was 2-column print, like a newspaper, and upper and lower case. Any of you remember when the high-speed printer only put out upper layer? Okay. Well, the Navy wanted upper and lower. Okay? So I was trying to figure out how was I going to program this system to do this. And this is where networking comes in. I was talking to a guy that I knew from Boeing Aircraft, and I told him what my problem was. And he said, "Ray, I think that IBM has something like that called a TN chain. Why don't you call and see if you can get the Navy to buy that for you?" And I did. And the Navy bought it. And I brought this system back to D.C. and put it on the computer there. And, of course, I couldn't get enough computer time during the day to make the system work. Because, again, I needed to tear the system apart and reassemble it. So I'd work all day, and 7 o'clock at night, they'd turn the computer off. 7:30, I'd come back in, sign in with the guards, and fire up the system. And I'd work until about midnight and go home. Never charged them a dime extra. A week or so later, he comes in and he says, "Ray, you're not allowed to come in here and work alone at night." I said, "Okay." And I tried to explain that I needed 4 hours at a crack to do this. Didn't matter. So I asked several of the co-workers. They said, not unless you can pay us overtime. And I said, well, I can't pay you overtime, but if I make it fly, you'll have all the overtime you need. This was the automated specification system for designing ships. Nobody would agree. So my son was 3 years old, and I brought him to work. And I brought my mother, and I put her in the corner and let her work crossword puzzles. I taught David to program in BASIC. A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals A plus B, print C. He was programming. And then I taught him to punch cards. Let him sit over there and punch cards. And with that, I could tear the system apart and work. When David got sleepy, I'd put him on a desk and cover him up with a blanket. And I still worked until midnight. Well, a week or two later, the boss comes to me and he says, why are you bringing your mother and son in here? They don't work here. I said, you said I couldn't work alone at night. I'm not alone. He says, why are you doing this? I said, it's the only way I can meet the deadline you gave me. You gave me a 6-month deadline on something you all have been working on for 6 years. He said, are you that determined to meet your deadline? I said, yes. Next day, I had a staff that came in from 4 to 12, okay, to work with me. Well, I met the deadline, and I said to him, now give me a true ship to design. And he said, oh, nobody's going to give you a ship. Everybody thought that was an impossible task, and we just wanted to see if you could do it. Nobody else had been able to pull it off. Well, I am mad, to put it politely, because I'd worked myself to death meeting that deadline to design a ship. Believe it or not, within 2 weeks, President Nixon was in office, and he called the Navy, or sent them a message, that for a particular ship design, he was giving the Navy 2 months to do the rough draft. The admirals came to me and they said, young lady, we understand you've got a system to design ships. The president has given us 2 months rather than the 2 years. We can give you a month. Can you do it? I brought that rascal in 18 hours and 26 minutes. Now, naturally, I kept going back and checking to see if I'd done something wrong. And we bound the specifications in books at that time, old computer printout paper. And I made a flag, put it on my desk on top of the books, and says, announcing the birth of the first ship designed using a computer. Proud mother, Raye Montague.
All right.
Gestation period, 18 hours and 26 minutes. Well, that was Columbus weekend. I was so tired and worn out that when I came back to work on Tuesday morning, I overslept. I was worn out. So when I got there, my boss and all these little henchmen were standing at the elevator. They said, we've been here since 5 o'clock this morning. Where did it blow up? I said, it didn't. They said, well, where did it fail? I said, have you been to my desk? One guy said, we've been up on the roof since 5 o'clock. I said, I wasn't going to kill my fool self. I said, but have you been to my desk? No. And then I took my boss and his henchman, and they saw the birth announcement, and he called Captain Rasmussen, I believe was the name then, and told the secretary we had to see him. And he took me by the hand on a copy of the document, and we walked in. He had a high-level meeting going on, but my boss laid the ship on its desk, and he said, here's your ship, and here's the young lady who designed it for you. And after that, my career just took off, okay? And that's when I received the Meritorious Civilian Service Award, which is the third highest honor you can receive in the Navy. And then the Secretary of the Navy nominated me to be the Federal Woman of the Year because he said I had revolutionized the design process for all naval ships and submarines. My life was threatened. If I accepted these awards, they went through the area and told them I would be killed. So they had to transfer my office from the 7th floor down to the 1st floor across from security. I was no longer allowed to work at night. And they had to move my car up to where they could monitor it on TV cameras. But I continued to work. Now, when you want something to fail, you give it to the busiest person around. So this time they'd come up with the Federal Women's Program Coordinator. And they assigned that effort to me, in addition to my technical work. So what did I do? I did the federal program, women's program stuff all day, opened doors for people, helped them with upward mobility, things of that type. And then I did my technical work at night. My son called and said, Mom, do you realize it's 4 o'clock in the morning? I said, I'm sorry, son, I'll be right home. But anyway, eventually they hired a full-time Federal Women Program Coordinator. But I went all over the country representing the NAVSEA at that time in NAVSEC. The interesting thing is there was a group called Lytton Industries. I'm sure you all still work with them. Okay. Lytton had developed a ship, the LHA #1. I only worked on the first ship of a class. Someone told me, you push it off, let somebody else do all the mothering and dog stuff. But you just get it working and move it on. So when I would go to conferences for the Department of Defense, they set up a manufacturing technology advisor group. There was a representative from the Army, the Air Force, NASA. I was the Navy's rep, industry, and academia. We had representatives like from General Motors and Ford and all those places coming in from industry. And we would have to go around to the different activities and find out what was going on and report to Department of Defense on the manufacturing technology that was being used or how we could improve it. During this time, I was lecturing at the Naval Academy. Oh, the racist guy fell in love with me after I brought that ship in and was getting so much recognition because that made him look good, right? And so he said to me, Ray, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, you want the truth? And he said, yes. I said, I want your job. He said, there are a lot of people around who want my job, but you're the first one who had the guts to stand here and tell me. So sit down and let's plan the rest of your career. And he became my mentor. And the next thing you know, he says, we've got to get you, the public to know you, got to get you into this, get you into that. He opened doors for me. Next, every day I had to bring my lunch and go sit at his desk while he taught me true ship design and construction. Okay? He taught me. This is a man who wanted to get rid of me. Well, I'm lecturing at the Naval Academy. I'm on this manufacturing technology advisory group. I'm running around the world speaking to everybody twice because the Navy was the leading edge of technology in CAD CAM. How many of you know about computer-aided design, computer-aided manufacturing? I helped to develop some of CAD CAM. So the British and the Australians came for my help on the design of some of their ships. So, all of a sudden I've just got all sorts of doors open. But that's why I was a hidden figure. Nobody, the Navy knew about me, but nobody else knew. But anyway, I was going to tell you this, that was a bright point in my life.
Right.
And we were out at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base working on an Air Force project. We were doing an RFP for aircraft wings made out of graphite. What do I know about graphite? But anyway, we sent a spacecraft to the moon. Remember what this teacher told me about aiming for the stars? Very worst, I'd land on the moon. Well, we sent a spacecraft to the moon. And the little robot went out and extended this little arm to get a soil sample. And the arm would not retract. Do any of you old enough to remember that? Well, NASA sent for the guy who was responsible. His name was George Sally. And George Sally was locked up with me out of Wright-Patterson Air Force Base trying to work on this RFP. So NASA said, you come back and find the glitch for this robot. And we said, oh no, we're the experts in the area, send the data to us. And they did. And we spread it on the floor. And I can't say who found the glitch. I'm sure George Sally did, this was his program. But we were all helping. And 72 hours later, the arm retracted. So when an article was written about it, I sent a copy of it to Mrs. Holliday, who had been the teacher, who told me to go aim for the stars. I said, you told me to aim for the stars. At the very worst, I'd land on the moon. I said, I've been to the moon, baby.
Yes. Thank you for sharing all of those highlights. They were lovely. So with that, all of that said, name a time during your career that it felt just hard to go on, and how did you overcome? Give me a story of a certain adversity that you faced, and how you kept moving, because I know you kept moving.
Okay. I had made it to a GS-14 level. And there was a guy named Ray Ramsey who resented me. He was from England. And his attitude was, and he actually told me this, if you were in England, you wouldn't have this type of job and you wouldn't making this kind of money. So I have received outstanding awards all of my career, all the way through. And this was when they set up merit pay objectives. and we set up our merit pay objectives. And every time I tried to address my objectives, he would pull me off to work on some other project. And I said, well, hey, I need to change my merit pay objectives because I can't meet them if you keep pulling me off to do other things. Well, he said, oh, no, we'll take care of that when the evaluation time comes. I asked some of the guys, would you all take notes when I ask him about changing my merit pay objectives and what he says? I said, because I've got a feeling that he's going to try to use this against me. All of those guys simply forgot. And sure enough, when time came for evaluation, do you know that Russell tried to give me an unsatisfactory? And I no. So I filed suit. You know, I've had all these years of outstanding and meritorious service awards. All of a sudden, I've gone crazy. You know. Anyway, they gave me the thing came from personnel like on Friday afternoon, and I had 36 hours to respond, and this was on Friday, which meant I had to have a response in Monday morning. So nobody figured I could respond to this. Well, I had a Navy friend, Navy friend who knew the system. And we got together, and I told him what was going on, and he said, Ray, they can't do that to you. And we worked out grievance. And we filed 35 charges against this rascal. And I added to personnel first thing Monday morning, which blew everybody's mind. Okay? It's typed up. I had a chart. With well, needless to say, Admiral Lisenby was in office then. And he said, Ray, I can't believe he's trying to do this to you. And I said, I couldn't either. I said, so I filed charges against him. And what they did was they transferred me from his area and did not give me the unsat. I refused to accept it. I wrote it all. Mm-hmm. And two guys actually went forward to admit they had heard him say he wanted to get rid of me. Mm. And he was going to do all he could to get rid of me. Wow. So they transferred me to PMS 309, which was Systems Information Improvement Program. That was Captain Leahy was there. And, of course, they advertised later for a program manager of ships, GM 15/SES. And I applied for that. And I was selected. And were they shocked that Raye Montague is not a man? I was the first, and that's what you see on one of those observer things. I was the deputy program manager of ships, and I was the first female in the history of the Navy. Well, here I am, GM 15/SES. So I'm going to be the first female SES at Black. My captain retired. So I just was carrying on all the duties. And all of a sudden the staffing plan comes out and the SES is gone. What do you mean? I'm supposed to, you all have sent me to the Federal Executive Institute down in Charlottesville, Virginia, all the preparation for me to have an SES. And you just wipe it out? Well, I retired without getting the SES. But I was supposed to be the first black SES.
Yeah.
And in that program, and this was with NAVSEA, that hurt.
Yeah.
That hurt because I had worked so hard to go from that grade 3 up the ladder. Remember, they didn't let me go to engineering school, but I ended up with being internationally registered as a professional engineer. I'm registered in 2 countries, Canada and the United States. And at one point, you actually saw a picture of my license, one of my licenses, one from Canada. And it actually says, based on his qualifications. Things of that type. And Admiral Lisenby, who was the head then of, I guess it was NAVSEA, and he said, Ray, I'm responsible for all the ships and submarines in the Navy. And I don't have a PE. He said, and you've got 2. He said, I think you're the only person on the East Coast that has registration as a professional engineer in 2 countries. And, this is why when this guy came along and tried to give me an unsat, and my listeners say, have you gone crazy? Why would he try to do that? Well, anyway, so be it.
Well, it sounds like you've had a very fortunate life and career, and we thank you for coming here and sharing your stories with us. I would like to close out. We're running out of time, so
Okay.
I would like to close out with a question that I've borrowed from Barbara Walters. It was one of her closeout questions because I'm new to this, and I just did some research this weekend. So I want to ask you, do you have a philosophy by which you live by?
Yes. Do all you can to open doors for other people. Don't be like the queen bee. Get to the top and pull the ladder up behind you. Mm-hmm. Open doors. Mentor people. I mentor even at the prison. I have a PowerPoint presentation that I do called Changing Obstacles into Challenging Situations. An obstacle is when they say you can't. You might have to drop back and go a different way, a different route, and it'll take you longer. But you can still achieve, and in many cases, excel. Mm-hmm. And I want people to know, don't take you can't for an answer. It's just an obstacle in your path. Make it a challenging situation and find a way around it. Don't be negative about it. Plus the fact you don't hate people. When they try to do the dirty stuff, if you let that fester, they're controlling you. Amen. But if you can smile sweetly and say, what can I do to help you? You're controlling them because they can't figure out, what's wrong with her? Okay. Thank you. Thank you.